are not safe in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue.
True.
I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? I'm Sabrina, your host today with Fight CPS and Win. Our guest today is Darlene. How are you? If you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I think you might be muted again. Are you there? We can't hear you. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yes, I can hear you now. All right, let's try again. How about you tell us a little bit about you and what's going on?
Well, for the past 4 years, I've been dealing with this child welfare case, and it's probably about the most terrible one I've ever dealt with. So my children were, in 2016, there was a CFS worker that showed up to my house. I was in a bathroom, using the bathroom, and my kids were on the couch watching TV, and I heard the door open. So like I rushed downstairs because my youngest was like a year old. So I wasn't sure if he like opened the door or whatever, right? Just being a parent, I run downstairs and there's this lady standing in my doorway. And so I asked her like where my children were because I didn't see my children. And she told me she didn't know where my children were, and she brought them back to my abuser, who it turns out because she gave him my access to my children, he ended up a convicted child molester and a child abuser. And this all happened in their care. I had mental health services and their doctors tell me they didn't have parental rights to have my children. But like, I didn't have a clue what my rights were then.
Right. Yep.
So,
and we're talking about like the children's father or a parent, just so we're on the same page.
yeah, unfortunately, it was my boy's father, but my daughter, who they also gave to her, her dad is my husband, and basically, so he wasn't her dad, so he had no parental rights, and he wasn't the parent, and CFS had a supervision order open, and they knew about the sexual assault for like 7 months, and my daughter ended up having to go to sexual assault clinic and the RCMP by herself, or the police, whatever. But
wow.
she had to do it all by herself, and like it started happening when she was like 11 years old. And Children's Services to this day, that was in 2016 that happened. They were taken from him in 2017, and they give him an apprehension order, and then they do a PGO. So then they slap an apprehension order on me the day he loses them after they gave them to him. And because of that, it's my fault too. It's like I wasn't even involved in this situation.
Right. I'm sorry to cut you off here, but can you back up just a little bit, because we're getting half of your face.
I'm trying.
Just got a note from my producer here, so sorry for that. Okay, that's better. Sorry. So continue. How many children do you have?
I have 5 altogether. One is my stepdaughter, but she's mine in my opinion. Like, her mother was very abusive and OD'd when she was 8 months old, so we ended up with the child through children's services. And yeah, there was just some abuse and some concerns with the birth mother, and I've been in her life since she was 5 months old. I've been her only mother, and she's now 5. So
okay. Sometimes the courts look at that, as you being one of the parents, because you've been there consistently since basically the beginning.
Oh, definitely. I pay child support, and I haven't seen the child since December 10th because they have her.
Wow. So are all the children in the system, basically?
Yep. And basically what happened, because I had evidence that they didn't have an apprehension order and that incident, the PGO had nothing to do with me.
Uh-huh.
I was able to put in a rescindment. And as soon as I did that, like 3 weeks later, they apprehended our daughter to kind of sabotage us from being able to get our other children back, right?
Of course.
So it's been real fun with them. This present caseworker who has our youngest daughter, like, because it's 2 different files.
So you have separate social workers?
Mm-mm. It's just 2 different files.
Okay.
2 different relationships.
Gotcha. And are you getting visits with them? Are you able to be in their lives as of right now?
We see the boys. We haven't, my husband hasn't seen our daughter since 3 weeks ago, and it's been, 2.5, he says, and it's been since December 10th since I've seen her.
I'm so sorry. That's rough.
Yeah, and they admitted to a domestic violence worker that's actually working with us for client abuse right now, that it was bogus.
Yeah. How's that going? They're trying to say that you have domestic violence when it never happened?
Yeah.
I went through the same thing. Yeah. So what are they telling you at this point? Do you have reunification services at this point in time?
They're not even answering. We barely got them. It took 5 messages for them to answer our phone call.
Sounds about right. Yeah. Do you have a lawyer for all this? Because
we do. We have 2 lawyers. My husband has one and I have one, because the child's also like, she's only been there since December 10th and she's completely traumatized. Like, and I mean, by that, she's bedwetting, she's having night terrors.
Oh my
goodness.
Oh.
She's like, the last visit my husband had with her, because they'll let him see her, but not me. They just alienated her out of my life. And the last visit he had recorded a video of the child's baby talking, and when she was asked to revert back to normal talking, she turns and looks at my husband and says, "But the foster father doesn't like my voice." So it's like, I can't even stress, like, and then my husband bought her bath bombs, and he asked her, like, "Did you get your bath bombs or whatever?" And she's 5, but she's like, got the smarts of probably a 9-year-old. Like, she just knows everything. But yeah, we asked her if she got her bath bombs, and she said that no, I haven't had a bath yet. That was 7 weeks after they got her. Like, she don't even look the same. Her hair's never done. And then when we mention these things to the workers, they're just like, "Well, she has nice clothes." It's like, that's because we bought them, like, and we gave them to you. Like, we're the ones that are buying the stuff for them.
Oh my goodness. And what are your lawyers saying? Are they giving you any kind of hope that they're going to be getting back
my
to you?
lawyer just gets so frustrated with all of the workers, really. Like my son, his workers just, like, they don't alienate the children from either one of us, because my husband's their stepdad, but he's been their only dad. One of them's he's been in one of their lives since he's 8 now, and he was 3 when I met him.
Right.
So, like, they don't do anything like that, but they're not good parents. Like, there's no supervision. Like, I've asked them 100 times, where's the supervision in their care? Because my children will come with holes in their clothes or holes in their socks, or, like, just dirty, or like what was it, last Sunday? My disabled, or mildly, my 12-year-old has challenges. I'll say that.
Okay.
He's not really disabled, but he has challenges, learning disabilities and stuff, and some sensories. And so, like, normally when you have a child like that, that shows signs of sensories and, isn't able, like, intellectual issues,
Yeah.
usually you supervise before they go somewhere. Well, he come with 2 different color boots.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, this is how you send my children to a visit? Like,
right. But if it was the other way around and you had the child and the social worker saw it like that, you would totally have the blame on you, and they would make such a big deal about it, right?
Yeah, and that's the next thing I was going to add, is that my son Kyron, when he was about 4, he got a black eye. And I've asked them, and to this day they don't know the explanation. But like you said, if it was me, they would be taking my children real quick. Like,
real quick. Yep.
It makes no sense. It doesn't. And it's really sad, because, like, I was just speaking to the MLA today, and I said to her, I said, like, it's sad that we have all these corruptions in the system, but, like, also too, that it was nice that they gave, like, the indigenous people all this money, but really, like, they haven't really done anything about the corruptions that cause the residential school problems. Like, in my opinion, I told them, like, foster care is just, an alternate. It's the same thing in a different place.
Sure, yeah.
In my opinion, because, like, 70% of these children that are being abused or neglected ends up being an indigenous child. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's like all children. It's like, it's not fair. Like, my one son, like, basically the worker don't like it, but he'll ask every visit if he can make a video for the lawyer. And he always says, I want to come home with my mom.
Wow.
I want to come home with my mom.
Wow, that is so great.
Yeah, one of them even said they don't feel safe, and that the worker was present when I recorded this, and I put it on YouTube. But he said that he felt safer with us, and that he didn't feel heard, and that when he tells the workers that he wants more visits, they don't get back to him. So what does that tell you? Like, they're not.
Of course.
The child's voice is not valid.
Never is.
And that's not fair.
Something kind of recent like that, and my daughter told the social worker that she did not want to go back to Nana's ever again. The social worker promised her she would never have to go again, and then
I bet you put her back there.
Yep, let my mom take her supposedly for the weekend, right? And now she hasn't come back in months, and it's just such a nightmare. And knowing that there was signs of all kinds of abuse going on there. There was even a police involved for an abusive situation that happened between them. The social workers don't care. They don't care. My daughter told her, if I have to go with my Nana, something bad is going to happen to me. They didn't care. Didn't care at all. And something.
No, they never do.
It's just amazing to me, really.
But I mean, I've had to flee my houses because they've broken into my homes while I was in different towns. And took pictures of the evidence of them doing it. Like, there's a police investigation in Sherwood Park and in Fort Saskatchewan, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
in Alberta, and like I've had it in the newspaper. I've messaged just about, like, the minister won't even do anything. You know what the minister told me? The minister said that there's just too many cases. She doesn't want to deal with it. Call Children's Services. So it's like they know the corruptions are bad, and they're at the point where they can't control them anymore. So they're just neglecting them.
Yeah, it's really bad. And so you're not getting any services at the moment, like taking classes and drug testing and all that?
I never have. Like, and
You never have. That's very interesting.
And weirdly, like, I passed all the drug tests from way back. I had like something like 10 clean drug tests, because the only thing I smoke is marijuana, but I have a medical prescription for it, and it's legalized anyway.
Right.
So they can't do anything, and I usually don't do it in front of my kids. Like, I usually go outside, and like it's usually after the kids are in bed anyway, so
Right.
or before I go to bed, you know.
Yeah. And like you said,
So
it's
my kids don't know.
legalized, so there's really not much I don't think they can do as long as you're not by the kids. But so are your attorneys, they're public defenders? Or are they private attorneys?
Oh, legally.
No, they're
You pick up.
they're legal aid, but we got some kick-ass legal aid lawyers. We got lucky.
That's
like,
really
my
cool.
one lawyer's been with me for 4 years for the boys.
Uh-huh.
And his lawyer, like, their lawyer shook his hand when the court case was done last year, because he just like almost ripped him a new one. It was good.
Wow. And so when you go to the lawyers and you're telling them, look, I'm not getting my visits that I'm supposed to be getting, I'm not having reunification services, what are they telling you to do about this?
Well, my lawyer was like, one day he cracked a joke. Like, he told me, he said, well, I think you should just tell her to go F herself. Like, and I was like, well, I don't know if we should do that just yet, but that might be a little bit too up there,
Yeah.
But he was just joking, and like, it wasn't even on purpose that he ended up being that good of an advocate. It's because Children's Services, like, my workers are different than other people's workers. They really piss people off. They told my lawyer that they were willing to trauma our daughter out just to fuck with us. Excuse my language.
I believe it all. I've been through it since I was a kid. And if I'm not mistaken, were you also in the system as a child?
Yeah, I was taken from my parents and this is the reason I was taken from my parents, okay? It was the funniest thing. My brother, I never forget it. He was about 2-3 years old, maybe. He was just a toddler, like, and toddlers make up stories, okay?
I definitely know
But
that.
basically, picture a clawfoot tub, how small it is, okay?
Yep.
This is what we had in our house at the time. And this little boy, when the Children's Services worker showed up, says to her, she asked him if anybody was getting hurt or something like that, or I forget how she said it, but he basically said, yeah. He said, Mom and Dad and about 15 other people that he named off. No, I'm not even joking. Like, he named like 15 to 20 people off, and he said they were all in the bathtub, and then Mommy pulled Daddy's hair and threw him on the ground. It's like, okay, first of all, I would believe that story if the tub could fit that many people.
That's funny.
It lasted about 2 weeks, but they kept doing it. Like, once a month they took us. Like, we were never at home. There was no stability. I remember in grade 3, I didn't even get to go to grade 3. I didn't get friends. Like, they kept me home the whole year.
Wow.
Like, and the foster parent I was with, like, I sat in a basement most of the time crying for, like, my grandma or somebody that, like, gave a shit. Like, and then I remember the one time they placed me in Digby, Nova Scotia. I don't know if it was foster care or kinship. But anyways, the foster father came in about 3:00 in the morning, and he held a knife to his throat, and I was about 10 years old, and He tried to rape.
Oh
And I
my
got the courage. Don't ask me where, but I'll never forget it. But I'm always going to be proud of myself for that. I sat up and I looked him right in the face and I said, "Look, this isn't right. I think you should just go to sleep. Like, go tell your wife or something." Like,
That's
so I
amazing that you
to
did
like
that.
sit up at 10 years old and tell him that.
That's
And then
amazing. Yeah.
I wasn't able to call because obviously, like, he wasn't going to let me leave the house to go rat him out, right? So
Yeah.
I waited until I had a supervised phone call with my dad. And I was able to, like, while they just walked out momentarily, and I was able to tell my dad what happened as quickly as I possibly could. And my dad actually come and apprehended me from them.
Oh, wow.
They didn't even come show up for me. They never even knew about that. They didn't care. They didn't
That's
find out
so
till
wrong.
about the incident till after. They didn't even care if they knew.
That's
But
so wrong.
you know what makes me mad is that I spoke to the cop, and the cop showed me his record when they charged him. 47 other victims.
Oh,
And
that's a
I
big
also,
number.
as a little kid, always thought it was weird that he had 2 twin girls. But when they would come over, the CFS worker would always like try to pull her aside and quietly tell her. And one time I overheard them say that he had to be on 24-hour watch prior to it happening. So it's like, why would you place me in a foster home or a kinship care where you know there's a sex offender?
Yeah. They don't
Like,
care.
that's
It's
not okay.
unbelievable.
And
It's
then
really unbelievable.
And then they literally look at parents and tell them, "Well, you're messed up now, so you can't have your children back." And that's not fair.
Right. Nothing is fair about any of this, you know. And kind of the reason why I asked you about, you know, you going through it as a child as well, you know, there was something that I don't think anyone's really talking about.
I got shot as a child, like in the butt by an actual shotgun.
That's really awful, you know. But what I was saying is that, what do you do in a situation where you know that there is a child who's being abused? You know, because we've gone through all this and we know how CPS is, we know how these foster parents are. What do you do when you knowingly are seeing a child being beaten up, screaming for help, knowing that all they're going to do is make that child's life probably worse than it is right now, but not saying anything is not okay, but going to these social workers that don't care about the children? What do you do? You know, like
I guess because of all the wrongs that they've caused me and my family, like even went as far to try to become the divorce lawyer and divorce me and my husband when we kept telling them we didn't want that.
Yeah, they try to split you up, telling you that you'd be better off for your case, right?
Yeah, because
yeah,
they don't want me with him because then they can't mess him over. And the reason is because I went back to school in the midst of all this, and I have mental health and addiction social work, and I also have suicide intervention and child protection and in theory, first aid, CPR. I also worked as a support worker. Like, I advocate online for parents, and I even have joined court cases for parents. Like, that's what I do. I'm just advocating right now for everybody else.
That's really good. That's great. Yeah.
Well, I think it needs to happen. I think that, you know, these wrongs aren't going to stop if these parents don't start calling them out. Like, somebody has to do something. Because ultimately, law enforcement is scared of them. They don't even dare step foot around that. So it's like, if you can't trust law enforcement and victim services can't help you and child services isn't doing their job, then you're right. Who do you call?
Yeah. I mean,
there is nobody else after that.
It should not be that way. And it's so upsetting and wrong for these children, you know, people like us, I mean, who've had to deal with it since we were kids even. I mean, you would think that by now things would be different. So, I mean, it's wonderful that there's this show and, Vince Davis, all the advice that he gives. I wish I had that when I was going through all my stuff in court. But, like you said, they don't tell you, what legally your rights are or not. And they bully you into signing something that's never going to happen and trying to split you up with your husband, trying to make it sound so much worse than it is. And yet you complain about the foster care and they're not taking care of the kids, not doing their job right. And you think twice about it. It's just really outrageous. And I'm so sorry that you're having to go through all this. Gosh,
yeah, it's hard. My husband was actually, he ended up having a mental breakdown and, lost himself. Like he was going to see God because they were going to take his family. And so he was a missing persons for like 2.5 days, almost 3 days. And then he spent 4 days in the hospital, I think it was.
Wow. Is he okay
for
now?
Treatment.
Yeah.
He's perfectly fine now. Only thing is he can't remember anything from during the mental breakdown.
How scary.
And yeah, like he flagged a police officer, got out of his car and actually flagged this police officer down, was telling him that the worker had dead bodies in his trunk.
Oh my goodness.
The worker killed his family and their bodies was in the trunk. This is how much trauma they caused. Like they just messed with his head and kept like pulling people away from each other and trauming out our other children and like ignoring our youth. And like we have videos of them screaming and saying that you can't bring your other children to the visit because I said so. It's so like ridiculous. That's sibling alienation. Like how are you gonna do that? You know?
Yep.
It's not fair.
And parent alienation. And I really believe that they do that because then they go back and tell the children, oh, well, if your parents really wanted you, you'd be back there by now. And, it's because of your mom. And, how many times I've heard this from kids even saying that, that their foster parents or the social worker straight up told them that, this is all because of your mother. And if she was doing what she was supposed to be, you wouldn't be here right now. And they believe that, of course. And then to alienate from any of the family, the siblings, the parents, anyone.
That's actually funny you say that. That's funny you say that because there's actually a CFS director of Children's Services in Calgary area, about 4 hours away from me, that's being arrested for saying the exact same words that you just come out of your mouth. So it must be their trait.
I believe so.
Exactly the same words. But the only reason she's getting fired and all that is because she told this to this woman, but this woman was actually somebody like us. Like they do advocacy for families that go through these traumas. And she didn't actually have any kids in CFS's care, but this worker still yelled at her like she did. Hold on, dog. I'm on TV. Like the dog got to go. No barking on TV.
So, keep going. So, what are your plans?
There's been a lot.
Yeah.
What are my plans?
Yeah, what are your plans to do from now? Like, how are you planning on getting your kids back into your home?
Well, I plan on advocating a whole lot and just fighting super hard, like I've been doing. But I mean, this has been my hardest fight since they took the 5-year-old. That was the last straw for me. That cut the cake on the icing. Because not only did they take her from us and alienate her from us, but we gave them police files, medical records, their own files, and like pictures and documents after documents of this birth mother's abuse. And one time she had kidnapped her on a supervised visit. So like she's a red flag too, right?
Ooh, I would think so. That's
yeah, she even blocked it was scary. She blocked the cop's number when he tried to retrieve the child or whatever. But the worker just replied with, well, she didn't abuse her today, so it's fine. It's like, how is it fine? How is abuse ever fine? Like,
that's disgusting.
Not only that, my husband ended up in the hospital with this mental breakdown, and like 2 days before this happened, she slaps him with a lawsuit saying that she don't feel comfortable at work because we caused her mental distress. It's like, are you kidding me? We don't even come to your job. Like, who are you, lady?
Wow.
And we pretended to be her client, even though she has our child. Like, so just really unprofessional.
Wow. I would like talk to your lawyer and like demand that you get your visits with her, with all of them. So that way,
my lawyer's working on it. But my lawyer, I've never seen him this angry about a worker. Like, I'm not even joking you. Like, I thought my boy's case was messed up, but I'm telling you, like, he's never been this mad at this other worker. He gets pissed off after talking to her because she just says some stupid stuff. Like, she said it was domestic violence and emotional abuse. Then it wasn't emotional abuse, and that was the same stuff she said that was bogus. And then when you get to court, well, all we have is the PGO, which is like 6-7 years old. It's like, get away with it, honey. Like, go back home, you know? Like,
wow.
It just ain't right what they're doing, and it's affecting, like, they don't realize it's not just affecting the parents, it's psychologically damaging these children. Absolutely. And then they wonder why after they do return them, when they do, they're back involved a year later because, well, like, these children are being neglected.
Yeah. It's so sad, isn't it?
Because the parents don't know how to deal with it in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
It's true. They mess them up, and then they return them, and the parent gets overwhelmed and ends up either doing something stupid or just neglects the child unwillingly. You know?
Right.
Hello?
Yeah, are you there?
Like, unknowingly, like through a depression or whatever you may call it. Like, there's a lot of things that can come out of that. Psychological trauma and damage is probably one of the most severe types of abuse that, in my opinion, you can cause on a child.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. I mean, it really, truly is unbelievable, the things that I hear and have gone through myself. And
oh, yeah, I've been told that they don't like me and they'll do anything to get rid of me. Like, I've been told by workers that I should just, disappear, jump off a bridge because, then they don't have to deal with me. Like, I've been, even during a healing circle, I was in a meeting room with the person, the elder, and we were on speakerphone and we were trying to set up, like, the worker was supposed to call, but she didn't. So we called her and she picked up the phone and we asked her when she planned on doing the healing circles with me and the boys. And she said, oh yeah, I don't think we can do that because we can't trust your kids around the natives. It's like, they are native. Like, what is your issue? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
just, yeah, like my daughter, even like after they put her with my ex without parental guardianship or any kind of order and all that stuff happened, they basically told her she should shut up because it's only sexual assault. It's like, who tells that to a 12-year-old girl?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, she was drugged and everything when that happened to her. He drugged her when he did it. And it's like, all that was happening and they were supposed to be under a supervision order. They should have been there at least once a day. That makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told the RCMP officer that at that point, a supervision order is almost an apprehension. So it's basically half custody. So they should be charged for, like, child endangerment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it sounds like you got pretty lucky with your attorney, because most court appointed
I did, but
attorneys,
it's been really hard because CFS isn't giving up. And I don't know why, because they're in the media and everything. It's like, why won't you just give up? Like, what's your problem? But like these workers, like, got some willpower.
oh yeah,
And a lot of nerve.
have a lot backing them. They get away with everything. So of course they
I'm planning on stopping that too.
Yeah.
I sent a letter to the premier and the NDP, the MLA, and the Minister of Children's Services. And it was sort of a proposal to, I wanted a meeting basically to talk about corruptions. And I wanted to see what they were willing to tell me that they could do or offer to fix these corruptions and give parents back their children, or do something about the ones that are at least breaking the law, you know?
Right.
Like this, like I said, Ashley's worker, the youngest, she's falsified just about everything that she's walked into, and I don't understand why.
It's just sickening, really.
And they won't apologize even if they get caught, because they don't care. They don't care because it's not their children or their family. So it don't matter to them if they go back to their parent, or even if they wake up the next day, you know?
Right. It's so true. These children are just a paycheck for them. You know, they're literally.
I know. My daughter was in a youth care home, and the worker had come to my house while I was at work and forcefully got my underage child to sign a contract to go into a youth care home against her will. Yep. And she said that she called me and she said, "Can you come pick me up? Because I've been here 3 months and the worker hasn't even called me." Like, the worker, she never heard tell of her.
Actually.
So they just left her there and just kind of forgot about her periodically.
Yeah.
No. Your top of the reason housing is they took Shelby that day.
My husband's saying something. I hope that's okay.
Sorry. Then when
Yeah,
she
that's
had
fine.
the,
Totally.
okay. Sorry. When I'm writing, by the way. Anyways,
Hi.
so the worker, they took Shelby, like they did.
Try not to use names.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No worries.
So they took the oldest kid, set at 16, put her in chemo, like an independent living program.
Okay.
And then basically, Darley had found housing with like Capital Region, so it was cheap, right? In order to get the boys back, she needed stable housing. So she tells the worker she found housing. The worker goes and phones Capital Region and says, yeah, she has no kids, so she couldn't get the condo in Capital Region, so she couldn't get the boys. Really good work there. So they just sabotage you every which way.
Okay. Can we get Darlene back on? There you are.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, so my producer is just telling me that we need to talk with just you right now. If we can get your story. So is there anything that you want to bring up or say that like you wish you would have known beforehand? Or like any kind of advice you can give to the viewers that, you know, that would have maybe helped you, that you, like I said, you would have known?
If I'd have known what was going to happen, like, for sure, I would have took my children and probably left. So that they didn't have to go through the trauma that they do, because like where it stands, my children don't get two parents that love them. They don't get told that they're loved. They're not allowed here. And they live in a group home, and they're all separated into separate sections. They're not cared for properly. And like my one son come last summer with lice so bad that like the bowl was black. I'm not kidding you. Like he had to have had it for like months and months and months, and they didn't even do anything. It was so bad. Like, and the kids were itching, and I'm like, How can you not tell? Like, there's obviously like over 1,000 in his hair. He's had this for months.
Right.
So it's like, there's been a number of things. Or like them saying that they want to be with their siblings and their parents and they don't want to be there. And when I have to tell them that they can't stay, they basically just say, their reply is, but Mom, I cry. And it's like, that's really hard for me as a mother, because
absolutely,
I can't imagine not being able to give them what they need and want, you know?
Yeah. It's devastating to a mother, a parent, you know? It really is.
It is. It's hard. It's really hard. And then they let me keep the teenager because they messed her up and they said she's too much for them to handle. I said, of course you would pass her back after you screw her up. Like,
yeah.
Like, just cause her, like, extensive problems.
Right. And like they keep saying that, you know, CPS, they don't take the broken kids, right? That's what they keep saying.
Nope. And our poor daughter was so happy and fun loving. Like, when we had her, like, just 2 weeks prior, she had, like, her hair was straightened and she, like, had really nice outfit on. I think she's wearing a little pink dress or something like that. Like, really dressed to the nines. Like, and now they got her hair don't get done. And the only thing nice she's got to wear is something from us. And they're doing visits with an abuser that we gave them police files for. Like, they're actually giving her visits instead of giving me, the person that raised her, visits.
Right.
And
it makes no sense.
They're now trying to stop my husband's visits because they caused him a mental breakdown. And they decided, oh, well, we'll make you, like, wait, like, 2-3 weeks before we'll deal with you. All because the doctor wrote it on paper that they caused it.
Wow.
And
now,
boys, do they ever not?
That you've had evidence that you've brought into them. Have they ever actually taken any of that into consideration?
Mm-mm. And they tell people in, like, service team meetings, like, the judge told them to give me a copy of my file, to photocopy it for me. And they said, no, we'll read it to her. And then once in a service team meeting, I had brought, like, an Indigenous worker to the team meeting or whatever, who I was working with at the time. And basically, like, they shut that down too. They said, we can't have you on the file because we don't want too many people on the file. What does that tell you? They don't want people to know that my kids were actually kidnapped from me, not apprehended. Right. So it's like, and they definitely don't want people to know that they kidnap children and abuse them or put them in situations where they were at risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's, and they don't like being called into the media, but it's like, what do they expect parents to do when,
I think that's
like,
what needs to happen.
Yeah. Like, what do they expect? It's like you said, like, they don't care. And, like, you can call 100 people and nobody cares because everybody's afraid to address CPS.
Exactly.
So it's like, basically, you ain't got nothing left but the media and YouTube.
Right.
That's the only way you can get your story out there.
Yeah, hopefully enough of us can get together and do something about it. But the bottom line is they make way too much money off these kids that they're not going to let that happen. They're going to fight. And, you know, it's gone on for so long now. But luckily with social media the way it is now, hopefully we can actually get somewhere and change this. You know, one of the viewers was just saying that they should go to jail. You know, they should be held responsible for these, you know, acts that they're doing on these kids or the neglect. And, you know, they should be going to jail. And yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue. This just makes me so.
That's what I agree. Like 100%, I agree. And like, I also like really, honestly, don't care about like how much money they make or how much money a person could make. Like, it's not about the money. It's like,
it should not be,
I'm pretty sure that we can all agree that the children in these situations and the family safeties are basically the most important.
Right. I mean, that's what should be most important. But over and over again,
It's
it's
not.
just crystal clear that it's really about the money for them. And this is just, it's
I think
human
it's been a few
trafficking,
years. What's that?
No, go ahead.
I think it's been, you know, in the last, like, I'll say like 5 to 10 years, it's gotten bad because they just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And they've completely forgot about the two most important things that like their office stands for. And one is reunification. And the other one is the parents.
Right.
Like when they first came out, it was supposed to be about supporting parents and children in healthy families. And they were all about reunification. Now, like, children aren't being returned. They care less if they even try. And they're not supporting the parents. So it's like they forgot all about the parents and they're only focused on the child because, like you said, they don't care about the families. They don't even probably care about the child. They care about the money.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be about the money. It should be the child's safety first.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, is there anything else you would like to share? Anything else that you think is important that people know? Maybe somebody else who's going through the same thing as you?
All I can tell people is, you know, you're not alone. There's probably about 1 million more people in the world that's going through the same thing. Children's services are monsters, and they don't change because people don't use their voice. And if more people use their voice and more people believe in their own power, then like it's like I said today to the MLA and the government, you know, like as one we can't fix the problem, but as a whole we can. Like, you know, if we all work together, then together we can fix it. But it's never going to get fixed if it weren't for people like us, you know?
Absolutely.
I guess if I could say anything, like I said, it's just know you're not alone. And try to hold your head up and just never stop fighting. Like, don't let them tell you that you should sign your right over, because you shouldn't do anything that your heart doesn't tell you. You shouldn't do it because a CFS worker told you to do it.
Right. And, you know, that was for me one thing that I did not realize or understand in the beginning, because, you know, the social worker came and told me in the courtroom in the hallway that, you know, family court goes on hearsay and this is what I'm offering you and sign it right now. I didn't even see a judge when I made the first deal, but I didn't know. You go in there thinking that these people are telling you what is actually going down, but it is so important that you do your homework and know your rights and know what to do before you go in there, and talk to your lawyer beforehand if you can, you know, and a lot of people don't know that. And so I just wanted to say that because I've always wanted to say that, you know, I can't even believe
in the process of opening my own.
Opening your own?
I was just going to say I'm actually in the process my own group home for the purposes of having at least one safe place in this community for children to be trusted in, you know?
That is exactly what
the truth of the matter is, do I think that there's parents that you know maybe needs to not have their kids for safety reasons? Yes, I do. Do I think it's as many as CFS claims? No, I don't. So truthfully, I think that I think probably out of every 100 cases, probably only one of them was for real, you know? And that's a problem, because the problematic issue here is that most of the time these children go into care, and then what happens when, like in the case in Alberta recently, where the toddler or young child passed away 2 weeks after they got it. And he was perfectly healthy before they got it, but it was natural causes, apparently. It's like, it didn't make sense at all. So, but you know, there's even children that are like abused, like this child that they said was natural causes. And then when they got him to the autopsy, he had bruises all on his insides.
Oh,
So it's like they
so
abused them. Yep, they abused them. Like I worked with this client. For example, I was a support worker for a young lady who was having some issues with CFS. Her boyfriend was abusive and had shook her son, and she had to rush him to the hospital. She had nothing to do with it, but she had passed lie detector tests and everything, and they kept this mother's kid in foster care for 6 straight months. And for 6 months, his legs were being broken. He was puking up blood. His arms were being broken. It was just a really sad story. Like, he suffered so much trauma and abuse at the hands of CFS, and all they did was open a police file, and then they closed it and saying that, oh, they couldn't find nothing on him. I said, of course they couldn't, because it's somebody they hired. They don't want people to know that this is happening in their care.
Right. Exactly.
But it definitely wasn't the mother, because she can't be in 2 places at once. And like the one day when he broke his arm or his leg, she was at my house and ended up having to get a ride there. It's like, it's crazy. But they didn't even give her no notice. They walked in the hospital and just took the kid without an apprehension order, just left.
Really? Wow.
She has that child back, I'm pleased to say. I did
really
support her to the very end, and she does have her child back. So
that is wonderful to hear. It's so sad.
I'm really glad I was able to help in any way, you know.
Yeah, that is so wonderful.
Yeah. Wow. I wish there was more cases like that, because like I said, there's a lot. Like, there was even a 2-year-old boy here that passed away and was badly beaten, and they didn't even have him 2 days. 2 days one time.
Oh,
and the mother was just devastated, and they had 2 of her kids when the child died, and she demanded the older daughter back, like the 4-year-old. And they wouldn't give her back. Like, the judge actually did up an order and signed the kid back to her because of the incident. And the Children's Services ignored her calls and wouldn't give the child back. They refused to return her. Like, it was bad. It's like, I told the government today, like, the ones that go above the government, I guess, that, you know, that's one of the biggest things that I would like to see change in the system, is when they sabotage people and do things like this. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's just devastating to parents. It's like, who are you to play God with our children, is what I told them. I said, they don't have the right to play God with our children.
Right. And that's exactly
like,
what
they're our children. Yes, but the bottom line is that they may sit behind a desk and have a piece of paper that told them that this and this and this should go. And I can also speak to that. Like, I've taken those studies, and I now know, like, too, like, enough after taking the studies myself, that it's not even that they're getting it out of book. It's they're making up their own rules as they go, because they don't care to follow the damn rules.
Yes.
And that's a huge issue.
Yeah. And the fact that, you know, the judges always go with what the workers tell them, you know.
And the other thing I think they should change. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
Yeah, the judges do always go for what the workers tell them. But I was just going to add that, you know, like, they need to do something about these workers just being able to, come in and take kids without orders. That's not okay. Because if it were me and I did that and I took off out of the state, you bet I'd be charged for kidnapping.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like, that's not cool. Like, you can't do crap like that.
It's not.
It sucks.
It's not cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got another friend that her grandkids were in foster care. and she was fighting for her grandkids, and they didn't like her, or for whatever reason, they were like not nice to her or whatever. They would only talk to her husband. Because, well, it wasn't her fault, I guess. It was because CFS was like abusing her granddaughter.
Ooh.
And it's like, that's not okay. Like, they almost killed her granddaughter. And it's like, so she won her CFS case because of that. But at the same time, it's like, when did it become okay for society to think that this is okay to sit back and watch? If we're going to sit even as normal citizens and watch somebody walk down the street and slap their child, and we're going to call them in to Child Protective Services because we feel that kid's in danger, then how are we going to sit back and watch CFS make the same mistakes and problems?
Right.
It's not fair. It's like there's no in between. It's a one-sided street. Like, parents, it's almost like parents have rights, but they're hidden. They don't have them.
Right. Exactly.
CFS has all the rights when they're involved, and nobody else gets a say.
Yeah. That's why it is so important to know your rights and to do your homework, because ultimately,
I really have like researched so much, and it's like now I know so many things, and I'm able to tell parents, no, like, call the RCMP, report your children missing, because if they don't have an apprehension order, they do not have a reason to have your child. And if they do have a reason, it better be a damn good one.
yeah.
So yeah,
And I think the problem is as well is that when the CPS workers go to remove children, they'll bring police officers with them, and the police officers ultimately just do what the worker says, because they don't really know. You know, that's not really their alley of, you know, what they do for work. But, you know, you show up with the police and you flash a badge, and people think that they legally can do this. But you're right.
Which I don't think or agree with. I think that CFS shouldn't be able to show up with police officers. Victim services, maybe. That way, in case of emergency, basically they could bring victim services in case of emergency, or in case the parent may need support.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps, like, but
yeah,
I agree. I think bringing the police in, like bringing children's services in and uprooting these children's lives is bad enough, but to put a cop in there too, you know, maybe not for all children. Well, I'll put it to you this way. Not all children are going to think it's cool. Like, a 3-year-old might be very scared of that sort of thing.
I would imagine,
you know?
so. Yes.
You know, and they have to realize that event could cause them damage for the rest of their life. But not only that, like, they could end up like going over that in their brain constantly,
right,
time and time again, and it, you know, could cause other issues.
Right.
And they don't understand that. They don't get that, you know, like I said to the one worker, and maybe this was wrong for me to say, but, you know, I don't regret it. And it was probably it made me feel the best. And I'm telling you, like, I'm not usually a mean one, but she just said something really rude, and she just wouldn't work with me, and she was just being really difficult. So I said to her, you know what? I said, you're a really cruel person. And I said, I hope that when you, like, she had a picture of her son on her desk or whatever. I said, I hope that when you go home at night and look at your son, you have a constant reminder that you're treating him right and abusing ours.
Right.
Because how is it fair? And how is your child more important than somebody else's?
Exactly.
When did it become individual children's safety? Because in my opinion, I thought all children mattered, not just an individual child.
Right. That's how I would expect and hope it to be. but it has never been that way in my experience with them.
Same as I got MS and like PTSD caused by them. Well, my MS is hereditary, so that's not caused, but the PTSD is.
Yes. Right.
And, you know, when I'm nervous or, you know, like when I'm doing something that like I normally wouldn't do, like I'll stutter a little bit. So they call me like mentally retarded and like challenged and like I'm just mentally incapable. And it's like, I'm actually pretty smart. Looks can be deceiving. Like I would be very afraid of the information I found. Like I hired an private investigator and everything. Like you don't even know like the evidence that I built up. So it's like,
Great.
I think that they need to be aware that like because of these corruptions and what they've done to people, parents like are now starting to jump into action and fight harder, which is ultimately going to be the reason they'll get exposed completely.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, there's like I don't know what you guys have out there, but here in Alberta, they have a place called CACIA. It's Indigenous Children's Services. They're like the best kind. They don't care what color you are, what nation you're from. They will support you if you need support. I worked with a worker through them for 1 year with our daughter, and they actually fired the one before her for trying to split us apart. And then this worker stepped in and didn't split us apart and just worked harder with us to make sure it worked out, right? And then closed the file without concerns. And then maybe 8 months later, this other worker comes in and just tries to uproot everything, thinking she knows everything she's talking about. And I know for a fact that when they opened this case originally, it was in Fort Saskatchewan. Here's the messed up part. Okay, this one's really going to get to you. But it was the child molester's same office that he worked through and one of his workers. Or somebody that had connection with one of his workers or had prior had conversations about him. Because when she showed up at the house, she knew nothing about our file. She was asking us questions. But she knew everything about my ex and asked me how I was doing. It's like, it just was all too weird for me.
Yeah.
And my daughter, I hugged her before I left because they made me leave the house. And she said, "Where are you going, Mommy?" And I said, Mommy has to go or whatever, right?
It's so sad.
And
she
looked me in the face and nowhere to lie. At 4 years old, she says, "Are you still going to be part of my heart?" And I lost it. Like, I cried the whole way home in the cab because I couldn't imagine like her poor heart aching like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like children deserve
them
better than what they are giving them. And, you know, like people can judge other parents, you know, it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people on Facebook all the time, don't judge your friend for their parenting. Just be happy they got a parent that loves them. That's not, if they're not abusing them and they love them and, you know, they're being semi-looked after, you know, no parent is perfect. Like, I'm happy with that. But just be happy they're not in the position that these children are that CFS has, because the kids that Children's Services has in their hands, as soon as they get the child, the trauma starts.
Exactly.
And your child's never the same again. And believe me, my daughter can't have children because of them, because the guy damaged her insides.
Oh my gosh.
So she has half of her heart gone. Yeah, like it's really sad.
Oh my gosh.
And she'll never be the same. Like, she'll never fully be able to do completely everything on her own because of the trauma they caused.
Right.
And it's sad because, unfortunately for Shelby, or for my daughter, sorry. Yeah, basically, unfortunately for her, it's really hard to talk about, sorry.
Yeah.
She didn't get a chance. She was basically put with a convicted pedophile who treated her as the wife and the slave, and she had to do all the cooking, the cleaning, and take care of the kids while he ran the roads. And then he would come home and like drug her and do things to her, and
Oh my gosh.
it's like, it completely disgusts me because they'll never know that, like, the life that she has to live because of that trauma.
Wow. And have they done anything about this? They haven't, right?
They don't care. It's done and it's over with. They don't care. Nobody did nothing then, so who cares?
That is so wrong. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
the RCMP are now investigating it. Finally, they caught on to their shit. Like, it took me 6 times reporting it.
Yeah.
But after reporting it umpteen times and them realizing, okay, like, something ain't right here, and then professionals admitting to them and us giving them, like, other police documents and evidence, basically they just said, you know what, enough is enough. Something isn't right here. I don't know what isn't right, but it's not right. So this one nice lady took my case, and they've been just great and very patient with me, and not forcefully making me like rush the information. It's been amazing.
That's really good to hear.
And I think it'll be good too, because if they get dealt with in my case, I feel like my children will get justice and I'll get justice, but also so many other people will get justice and how do I want to put that? Yeah, they'll receive justice, but also more help and probably more validation in the system, because the government will finally start stepping down on like what they can and can't do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
but
time.
I think they should also have a law all over the world, in all states, in my opinion, that states that, you know, maybe not in the protection area. If a child really needs protection, you know, I could see them getting away with something like that, taking a kid for that reason if they had to do it temporarily.
Yeah.
It's 48 hours supposed to be or whatever. But I don't agree with just like ripping the child away and not having enough evidence to rip that child away, because to me, I look at the factors, and the factor is that, is it better to help the parent and keep the child in the home, and that way you chance less trauma or damages psychologically? Or do you remove the child and cause them more problems than they started with? Like, I don't see the point in taking a bad situation or, you know, maybe a mild situation and making it 10 times worse than it really is for everybody involved in the case.
Right.
Because they don't realize it's like it affects everybody. It affects the lawyers, like it affects the cops, it affects everybody involved, the children, like mainly the children. Because the children aren't getting what they feel they need. Therefore, they're angry, and you're seeing them on pills and stuff like that because they can't control them anymore because they're angry. Right. And they're hurt. And it's like, they'll blame it on a disorder. And it's like, no, the child doesn't have a disorder. It's because the child wants its parents that you tried to alienate from them.
Right. Of course.
The one thing that they seem to forget and have a hard time remembering is that you cannot break a bond between a child and a mother. If you don't do it around 3 to 5 months old, you might as well forget it. It ain't happening. So it's like, I don't understand like how after or since 1995, since Catholic social services, how they're still like thinking they can get away with the things that they do, you know?
Yeah. It's just such a nightmare. And I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and everything you've gone through. I really wish you the best. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up? Anything else you can think of?
Just thank you very much for having me on the show. And thank you. I appreciate your kindness, and it was really nice joining you guys. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
It was nice just to have somebody to talk to, but at the same time, it's nice to feel validated by somebody else. Like, you know, it is important that parents don't feel alone in this situation, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree. Well, if you ever need to reach out, you know, you can always reach out to me or come back on if you would like. If there's
you're
anybody
welcome to.
else out there who wants to come on the show or be a guest, please let us know as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say you're welcome to add me to Facebook too.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're kind of out of time here, but thank you guys so much for viewing. Again, my name is Sabrina, and I thank you all so much for watching. And again, if you would like to be on the show, please reach out. And everyone have a great night. Darlene, thank you again very much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Again, thanks for having me on the show. Have a great night.
Anytime. Have a good night.
You as well.